one example of a class-wide positive behavioral approach. There's lots of them. If anybody wants to email or follow up after this, I'd be happy to share some of these other examples. But we're going to talk about the good behavior game and think about how that might be used in an on-ground, a hybrid, or remote learning situation. In this approach, you target specific behaviors as we talked about. You divide the class up into teams. You might say we have this part of the room are the bears, this part of the room are the cheetahs, this part of the room are the blue jays, and your team is working together to have no more than 3 reminders for being out of your assigned area. And then during the lesson or during the time the teacher's working with the children, they would be going on with their standard procedures. But if someone got out of their area, they'd have to say, okay, the Blue Jays have 1 time of being out of their area. Remember, you can only have 2 more times where that happens. If the class is successful, then all kids on that team earn the reward. If your team had more than 3, then your team wouldn't earn the little reward. I'm going to show you a brief video to just convey that these rewards don't have to be expensive things teachers buy. They can be simple. You're going to see a teacher that had set up the good behavior game in his classroom. He had, you'll see some kids off to the side who aren't allowed to participate in the reward, and then some kids that are very enthusiastically participating in the reward, which is only about 10 seconds long.
A prize from Granny's Wacky Prize Box. Today's prize?
Drum solos. This is your moment to rock. 12 seconds. Here we go.
The research shows very clearly that those kids that were exposed to the game in 1st and 2nd grades were less likely to be involved in aggressive and risky behaviors later in life, and also less likely to use tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs.
What 2 letters did she use, ladies and gentlemen?
It's helped organize the class, it's helped with teamwork, it's helped with collaboration, and those aren't just skills that they're going to need now, but those are skills they'll take with them in the future.
So as you can see, part of being in school is reward is something you get to do, and sometimes one of the things that is exciting about the reward is that we work together as a group to earn this. And you could see the smiles on those children's faces as they were rocking out their drum solos. Very simple reward that they could work for. It didn't cost a nickel, but something that children were excited to earn. And we'll talk about how this could be developmentally extended. We might have some high school or middle school teachers on the call today, how it could be extended upwards for those grade levels. Group contingencies work just as well at those levels, sometimes a little bit even better because peer attention is so important for that developmental age that it can be used effectively there as well. One of the upward extensions for older grade levels would be to think about, well, what's really important to kids who are preteens or teens? And one of the things they really like to do is socialize with one another. Sometimes they like to just do nothing. So ending class a little bit early or giving some free time at the end might be a reasonable reward from an educator's perspective if that meant they got in 35 really solid minutes of instruction, as opposed to 35 minutes of instruction that was interspersed with a lot of redirection or having to stop or regroup or correct children or teens that were interrupting their lesson. So I'm going to show you, just in the interest of showing what some people with their boots on the ground in the field have done, I'm going to show 3 case studies of group contingencies. One at an early elementary school level, one at an elementary school level, and then one at a high school level. This was a pretty unique study that instead of tattling, they called it tootling, which was having students come up to the teacher to tell them something nice their classmates have done. Again, if we're running a deficit of positives in the world right now, this is a great example of how to ramp up the nice things that are being said and that are going on in the classroom environment. The teacher in this study used Class Dojo to track the toodles and post them to students. And then there was a goal that students had to meet having a certain number of these happen across the day. So again, thinking about little kids, you might say, well, they're just going to do a whole bunch of them right at the beginning and then and try to get it over with to get the reward. But remember, little kids are pretty honest with their behavior. They're going to forget about this. They might have to see their classmates do it one or two times before they activate themselves to go do it. But what you're really doing is creating a crescendo of nice things being said about one another, which not only is a positive for the class, but it wipes out the tattling because they don't need to go to the teacher to get attention, one-on-one attention by waiting for their classmate to mess up so they can tell the teacher. Now they can look around at all the good things going on and go up to their teacher and get that one-on-one adult attention by saying something nice about their classmates. It changes the whole climate of the classroom situation almost overnight. And you can see it's a little hard to see some of these graphs, but basically, if you look at children's behavior, you see in classroom one, you see a baseline, kind of middling effect. You see real nice separation during the intervention. The intervention flip-flops in terms of the positive and negative behavior when they withdrew it, and then it returns to where you would want it to be following the reinstatement of the intervention. And they showed that this worked not only in one classroom, but actually in two others. And this is a very strong design to show that this simple intervention had a very strong effect on the social behavior of the students in the classroom. I'll show you another study that we did on our own team. I don't know how many of you spend a lot of time in grade school cafeterias. They're going to be much different this year, but they're typically amongst the most challenging environments in the entire school building because you have a lot of children with low adult supervision and a lot of downtime that's not productive, right? If a child has a 40-minute cafeteria period and they eat their lunch within 10 minutes, that's 30 minutes of kind of letting their mind go wild on what else they can do in this time when there's not a lot of adults telling me what I'm supposed to be doing. In fact, we found when we looked at an average rule violation rate in the first week we were in this cafeteria as K through 5 students, they averaged 300 rule violations a day. And these are things like not only talking back or being disrespectful or teasing other kids, but sliding around under the table and the piles of trash that they created. It meant running around, some dangerous behavior where kids could knock into somebody or something because they weren't looking. We set up a pretty simple group contingency. This is a nice technique that we were advised to use was to make random scans about whether the class was following rules or not. So one of the things educators often tell me is it's really hard to keep up with all these programs and I can't watch all the kids at the same time. You don't have to. If you make a random scan, you tell the kids 3 times in the next 30-minute period, I'm going to be looking. And if everybody's following the rules, you earn a point or you earn a ticket. Or if I look up and somebody isn't following the rules, so somebody's out of their area that they were supposed to be in, I'll just announce that the class didn't earn their point for this scan. And you do that randomly. That's a pretty efficient model. And then at the end, each scan, if the children in the cafeteria at their lunch table were all following the rules, they earned a ticket. And then those tickets went into a bin at the end of the lunch period. And the next day on the morning announcements, the principal pulled out 3 classrooms tickets and those kids earned a group prize. They could wear pajamas to school. They could earn extra free time. I'm really hoping with the remote instruction, I'm going to find out about the most creative rewards this year from teachers because they can capitalize on the chance that kids are in their own home. It's going to be easy to do. You earn the chance to wear a funny hat on our next online class call, or you could wear your pajamas to school today. Based on it being a reward, not just because you just got up and out of bed and joined us. Once we started this group contingency, you can see almost an immediate drop to half as many rule violations. And then something I think is nice, that conveys something nice about schools is that when we brought this to the problem-solving team in the school, they said, boy, that's great, but I think we can do even better. We're going to keep track of which classes are the most successful in following the rules, and they're going to get a banner at the end of the week if they're in the top 3 over their door, and the principal and the custodial staff and the specials teachers are all going to make a point to go to that room and congratulate the class on being so well behaved in the cafeteria. And you can see that got us an even bigger bump down that sustained for more of the school year. The last thing I want to talk about is how we might do this with high school students. So a lot of people say, well, yeah, those group contingencies are great, but how do I do them with older students? This was a really nice study that illustrated how that could easily be done. The teacher in this study set a 2-minute countdown timer at the beginning of class. If the timer reached 0 before a teen in the class did something negative, like interrupted or talked back, the class earned a point and the timer was reset. If a negative behavior happened, let's say even if it happened at the 10-second mark on the countdown, it would get reset to 2 minutes. And the class had to earn 17 points across the class period. 35-minute class period, they had to earn most of the points, or 40-minute class period, they had to earn most of the points, and they could earn free time at the end of the class. And you can see some pretty striking results here. This is intervals without negative behavior. You can see there was not many in any of these 3 classes that participated. As soon as the contingency was set, look what happened. The teenagers immediately towed the line and did exactly what they were supposed to do because they were motivated by that free time at the end. When the contingency was taken away, they went back to some goofing around and not following the rules. But when reinstated, they immediately returned perfectly to hitting their 17 interval mark. So here's a group contingency. The group contingencies are getting the peers to do the work of the educator for you, right? They stop laughing and snickering when there's misbehavior, and they start saying, shh, stop, pay attention, and help reverse that maintainer of negative behavior.